Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we're ready. This thing, I've managed to get it into orbit off camera in a simulation. We've got all of our engineers in here. We've got 5 engineers and 5 scientists in here. And the frame rate is not amazing, but it is playable. This is going to take a while to launch it. In my experience, it's like 4 seconds per second. So we better get going now. It feels really, really slow off the pad. Our thrust to weight is actually 1.56, so it's not so bad. But up we go. The frame rate isn't great. It will get better based on my testing. So what I've done here, and I'll just go over that while we're in flight here. What I've done here is I've reworked the SRBs on the outside. You can see we've updated to Clydesdales, and we have just kind of changed where they are. They're externally mounted now. I've also gone through and redone all of the strut work because everything was flapping around and that was not okay. So the strut work has been redone. We've redesigned our SRBs and we're off. I'm going to begin our gravity turn here a little bit. We're going to be really gentle with it. We just need to get this thing out of the atmosphere and then we can worry about other problems. So we're just going to park right around here for a gravity turn for now. Maybe slightly further than that. I think I targeted this line here for the demo flight, for the trial flight, and that actually kind of worked. So just hold here. There was one time where I lost attitude on attempting this, but we had one of these that were not fully strutted in. And so it was just kind of flapping all over, and I think that was what caused it. So for the time being, we're just going to park here. And as this drifts downward, we're going to go into prograde. But as you can see here, we're only 25 seconds into this flight, right? Like, the game is not running at full speed with this craft. It will get better. I don't know how much better, but it will get better. So we're heading off here. As you can see, we're going to be heading downward a bit here, and I'm going to try to keep us on a 90-degree inclination. It's going to be interesting to do so. I'm not sure how realistic it really will be. I was able to mostly do it previously, so that's fine. Just overshooting it slightly here, trying to correct it, but it was one of these side-to-side corrections where we lost attitude in one of the test flights. But it was only the one test flight that we lost attitude in, and there have been some changes since, so I think we're okay. I hope we're okay. We're now 40 seconds into this flight, apparently. It's, real slow, no doubt about that. Once the SRBs are gone, things get better, but it's a lot better once we get out of the atmosphere. The frame rate improves dramatically at that point, so things will get better here, based on my testing. Not perfect, and refueling this is going to be exciting. We'll have to try to think about how we want to do that. We're probably just going to jettison the oxidizer that's left over once we get up to our designated parking orbit, because I don't think attempting to use that is useful in any meaningful way. Now we're trying to pitch down here, and I think that we should follow it, so I'm going to push us a little bit further downward. There we go, something along the lines of that. We've got about 27 seconds of burn time left in our SRBs here. I've had clean detachments when we were in prograde attitude, when we detached those previously, so fingers crossed on that one. But we're 55 seconds into this flight. And we've been at this for 4 minutes, so this is basically 25% speed, right? And there's not a lot we can do about that right now. We just need to get through this flight. Once we're through this, things will get a lot easier for us, although refueling it will be very interesting. I'm not sure how much of that we're going to do on camera. To be honest, I might do that off camera for the sake of time. We have, what, 2 weeks before KSP2 comes out? Something like that. I might do the refueling off camera. It's not particularly interesting, right? We just rendezvous, grab on, move the fuel over, and then detach. So that's all something to consider. We're now 1 minute and 5 seconds into this flight. And we've got 15 seconds left of SRB here. I'm trying to correct our heading slightly here. But we need to hold in this pro-grade attitude, right? Because we're going to be detaching our SRBs, and we need clean detachment here. So we need to hold pro-grade, and that is exactly what we're going to do for the next alleged 12 seconds here. Just detaching the SRBs cleans up the timing a lot, if I recall correctly. And I believe I do. So we're heading back towards that 90-degree marker here. 9 seconds left on our SRB burn. And we can see we've got 1,800 solid fuel left. Our thrust to weight is definitely getting up there. We just need to get this clean detachment. I'm watching our apoapsis height. It's looking reasonable. I don't love the amount of atmospheric effects we're seeing here, but that was seen in the previous flight and did not result in problems. So we should, in theory, be okay. I'm trying to steer us over more towards the center of the marker. Oh, overshot it. Taking us back. Okay, letting it settle. 2 seconds until booster detachment. 2, 1. Any moment now. Okay. Are we clean? Okay, it looks clean. Good. We're now making our way down towards the horizon. But we want to be a little bit cautious at this. We'll see how well we can control it. We were able to make this turn with the previous test flight, though. So I'm being a little bit careful with it here. But let's keep bringing it down. Just watching our apoapsis height here. Looks good. Okay. Holding at the horizon. We've overshot slightly. Working on bringing it back. We've managed to stop the momentum. That's a good sign. And it's coming back. Beautiful. Now, this thing isn't going to like to turn very much. I can tell you that right now. That's okay. That's okay. Cool. So we're basically at the horizon right now, just trying to finish up getting our attitude in here. Looks great. And we've managed to pick up a little bit of horizontal speed, actually a pretty good amount. We're going to cut the throttle once we get to 102, I think. So for the moment, this seems reasonably fine. Yeah, 102 seems okay. There's 101, and cutting the throttle. Beautiful. We're coasting. So, from here, of course, we need to circularize. This is still going to be laggy, which is fully expected with this kind of craft. There's not much we can do about that. I blame Unity for this. This game is made in Unity, and its single-threaded performance is not necessarily the greatest. So we're going to go ahead and get that set up. We're going to steer over to that maneuver node. And as soon as we get out of the atmosphere here in a little while, in fact, we're going to physics warp here. This is going to be real interesting, but we'll physics warp. As soon as we get out of the atmosphere, we'll extend a solar panel. It doesn't really matter which one. And we also need to realize that our power levels out at Joule are not going to be great, right? Because we didn't do anything about, like, bringing RTGs or anything like that. And that was a deliberate decision on my part. I decided not to do that. RTGs are extraordinarily expensive, and I would rather not deal with it. So instead, we're just going to have very slow science results, right? That's what that means. It doesn't actually matter to us. Slow science results are fine. So we'll just bring this on in. We're going to commence our circularization burn here in about 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds, And coming out of warp. 3, 2, 1, 0. And we throttle up. Beautiful. There's no way I'm going to physics warp this while we're burning right now. That is not going to happen. There's way too much thrust here for that to happen. So we're going to burn most of our remaining liquid fuel and oxidizer out of these tanks. That is to be expected. But we're going to have some oxidizer left over. Now we're going to want to keep the liquid fuel. That's for sure. But we're not going to want to keep the oxidizer. So let's just finish up this burn here. And then I believe we need to go through every single one of these tanks, of which there are many, and turn off the liquid fuel and burn off the oxidizer that way. That might be something I do off camera, to be honest. That sounds very tedious. We can do like one refueling mission, perhaps, on camera here. There may be time for that. And then we can do the rest off camera, and then take this to Joule next episode. That may be the way we end up doing it. Okay. So we've got about 250 more meters per second here until we are officially in orbit. But at this point, it's quite safe, right? We're not going to have any problems with this. We are going to be ditching these engines shortly. And we can see these decouplers are indeed the ones that we want to fire for that. 80 meters per second here. I'm watching our periapsis. Okay. That's good enough. Cool. So from here, we don't want to use these engines anymore. So we've got this oxidizer here, right? Before we ditch the engines, I guess we will go through and... it's going to be very tedious. So what we need to do is turn off the liquid fuel for all of these tanks, right? And there's going to be 12 of these tanks per section. There are 5 sections. So there's 60 of these tanks total. Actually, more than that. There are 4 of these tanks per section. So 16 per section. That's going to be very tedious. No doubt about that. How much DV is this really? If we turn this all back on. How much DV is this? Hang on. I'm going to turn all of this back on here. I suppose we could put this into, like, a... this is not enough DV for a lunar orbit. That's for sure. So this is like 400 DV? Thereabouts? Yeah, 410. Okay. Interesting. What if we were to just push up our orbit and then circularize? So push it up by about 200 meters per second. To about here or so. I don't like it because that's going to mean we burn more fuel, bringing our fuel up, right? So I think what we do instead is we just bring up liquid fuel, and we have about 4,000 DV here right now. So we need what? Like, we looked to budget, let me pull up the notepad here, 8,100. So that's very interesting. We have 410 from this remaining, but if we just bring up enough liquid fuel to bring this up to around 10,000, that should be more than sufficient. In theory. More than sufficient. So I think from here, what we do is A, we quick save in case we have any crashing issues. And then we head back to the Space Center. So we finally got this thing in orbit, right? That's a big deal. I say finally. It was actually pretty quick by my standards because I did a lot of the development off camera. We're pressed for time on that, so that's definitely fine. So how much fuel do we actually need to bring up? Well, we know that the current amount of fuel is about 3,300, right? For our nuclear engines. Actually, a little less than that. We'll call it 3,000 for our nuclear engines. Let's hop into the VAB here. And we know that our nuclear engine is 3 big orange tanks stacked on top of each other. Right? I'm pretty sure about that. Let's double check it. So we're going to open the Joule multi-outpost here. It's going to be laggy. Actually, it's not that bad in the VAB. It just takes a while to load, but it's not super laggy in the VAB. Oh, that wasn't bad at all. So yeah, 3 big orange tanks. So we have 5 of these. So we're calculating rough back of the envelope numbers that 5 of these is worth 3,000 DV. I don't know that for a fact, but that's... let's estimate that down. Let's bring that down and call it 2,500. So 2,500 divided by 5 is, of course, 500 per silo. So if we wanted to bring up roughly 6,000, let's open up our fuel delivery machine here. Fuel delivery machine. There we go. If we wanted to bring up 5,000, this isn't going to be very much. Well, we've got... This is going to be like, if all of this fuel gets there, and we're operating still on these. If all of this fuel gets there, we're going to be looking at somewhere around 600 DV for this. So to get that much... we'll be looking at about 10 of these flights. That's a lot. And the docking is going to be very slow because of the lag. So there's that as well. Okay, so I do think that a lot of this refueling is going to be done off camera, but let's go ahead and get this one at least in progress here. That is the next thing that we need to do, is get some fuel delivered here. We can potentially think about designing a heavier fuel lifter, but to be honest, it's going to be about the same in terms of, like, cost, right? I think. Fairly similar. Because of the way that the fuel, like, the rocket equation works, right? So, it would be something along those similar lines. Let's go ahead and get this thing taken off. It is, of course, going to go much faster. So that's nice. Let's begin our gravity turn at around that same 70 meter per second mark. There we go. This is so much more controllable. Beautiful. And we're just going to pop into prograde. Fantastic. And up we go. The main question that I have right now is, are we going to need more vertical speed than what we have at this moment? The answer to that is a solid maybe. Let's go ahead and hold here for the moment, because I definitely want a little bit more verticality. I feel like our turn is a little aggressive. Our apoapsis height is kind of low. We'll just stay here until it's at about 30-ish kilometers. And that should do just fine. I just want a little bit more altitude here. Cool. There's 30 kilometers, and we're heading back to prograde. I like it. So now we're at about 40 kilometer apoapsis. We're definitely seeing some atmospheric drag here. No doubt about that. But that's 50 kilometer apoapsis. And we're continuing to push up through the atmosphere here. It looks like it should be okay. That's a 70 kilometer apoapsis. So at this point, I want to be over at the horizon. Cool. And we'll just hold here. We're already too high on our apoapsis. So we're going to have to do a outside-in interception. That's fine. We're just going to push this up to around 130 is okay. From here, we will circularize. This does mean we're burning a little more fuel than we needed to because we overshot, but it's fine. So we'll just go ahead and head to the maneuver node. We're going to physics warp out of the atmosphere here. Guess we may as well arm the advanced grabbing unit. No point in not. Cool. So we're going to be burning off everything in these tanks from our circularization burn. So we're going to be on just the liquid fuel. Noted. Let's go ahead and warp forward. I think a redesigned fuel delivery machine probably does make sense. But I'm not sure if I'll actually do that. We'll see. Okay, we've got about 50 seconds here. Let's continue to warp. 30, 20, 10, and burn. Beautiful. So we're going to burn off this stage entirely. And switch over to nuclear. Ooh, we're tumbling awkwardly. Okay. Very awkwardly indeed. SAS on. There we go. We are in orbit here, but I do want to push our orbit up and circularize it. That does make interception a lot easier. So let's just commence this burn for the moment. This does have gimbaling, right? Actually, it doesn't. So we shouldn't be burning right now. For some reason, I was thinking nuclear engine had... maybe the bigger one has gimbaling, and the smaller doesn't. That's a possibility. Okay, so let's just get this circularized up as best we can. Cool. That should do the trick. RCS off. And we will set the dual multi-outpost as our target. And let's just see what an intercept would look like. We are off by 1.4 degrees. Noted. Okay. What kind of timing are we looking for here? We're probably looking to wait in orbit. Perhaps another orbit. Where was this one? Where is that? Oh, it's here. Apparently I'm blind. Okay. So, looks like we're going to be waiting potentially a number of orbits. Give me that maneuver node. Thank you. I want to press this button. Yeah, that's a number of orbits, all right. Our timing isn't ideal, but it'll do. Looks like we need to wait even another orbit here. No, we can't. Interesting. Okay, so it's going to be around here. Noted. So this is an intercept of 5.5 kilometers. We're going to... that's close enough, to be honest. That is close enough. So we'll set up with this maneuver node here. We'll physics warp our way on over. We'll get there eventually. It's a very heavy load to try to turn with just this remote guidance unit. But it'll be fine. So we'll bring this on around. And we'll, of course, want to warp to this burn, which will be in 1 day, 3 hours. Several orbits. No big deal. Any moment we want to get into position here. There we go. Okay, let's commence this warp here. That's quite a warp indeed. Okay, so this burn is going to be in about 58 seconds. We'll warp forward a little bit faster. 40 seconds, 30, 20, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. And a 20 meter per second burn gets us a reasonable encounter. Cool. It is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we are going to have the vehicle, by the time we come back, we're going to have it fully fueled. Fully fueled. That's going to take a while of off-camera work. I think that's very, very clear. But it should be fine. So we'll just get this all docked up, and this will probably already be gone by the time we come back. But yeah, it'll be fully fueled, and we'll head off to Joule. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Kentuin, James, Shadowwolf, Mlohan80, Kentogan, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Spartan News, Unisil, Rogue Corvid, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.